Yeah.
It's live, you bozo.
Trying to do my very sensible voice and behave myself. Yeah, exactly. That's what you said. Live, I'm shooting the shit. I'm trying not to do my screamy voice because nowadays some people listen to us on podcasts and we have to be like professional podcasters and use our sexy voices to talk very sensibly. But we haven't got any of those, so we've got us four. So, first of all, welcome to Shooting the Shit. This is your feminism plus business channel. It's strong women, it's strong opinions, and very occasionally, in fact, most of the time, it's strong language as well. So, this is the first time the four of us have been back together in such a long time, the four original shitters, and I'm quite overexcited about it. So, first of all, original shitter number one, Meriesha. What's your name and where do you come from?
Where do I come from? Oh, God. Well, my name's Meriesha and I come from Leicester. So, but I live in Yorkshire, so I'm not accepted in either area now, to be honest. But there we are.
You're from Leicester as well, aren't you, Joe? Does everyone leave Leicester? Is this a thing that everyone has to do? They have to go.
I feel a bit personally attacked now. There's nothing wrong with Leicester. Yes, I am. My name's Joanne Grant. Yes, indeed, originally from Leicester, but I live in Surrey. And one day I may go back. There's nothing wrong with Leicester.
Oh well, it's very posh in Surrey, though, isn't it? You'd have to lower your standards to go back, wouldn't you?
Again, what with the all my family live in Leicester.
It's very nice.
Oh, Leicester's lovely. It's lovely, yeah. It's a bit like Chorley, yeah. Lovely. Thank you, Joe. Hannah Weinhold, what's your name and where'd you come from?
I'm Hannah Weinhold, and I'm offended at Joe's face when Rachel said it's a bit like Chorley because I'm from Chorley.
I have no idea what Chorley's like.
Oh, it's a shithole. It is a right shithole. Yeah. A bit like Leicester.
Yeah. How dare you? Right, we've got crisps, we've got pot pie, we've got cheese, we've got so much. We've got the Attenboroughs, mate. We've got so much going on for us in Leicester. It's untrue.
That's true.
Do you know what? I'm with you actually. So yeah, because yeah, we're from Lancashire, and Hannah is obviously a defector into Yorkshire. And one of the things that always offends me about Yorkshire is that they don't have their own cheese. Lancashire has a cheese, Leicester has a cheese. Yorkshire, they always go, oh, we've got Wensleydale. It's like not called Yorkshire cheese, is it? So there we go. So yeah, anyway, there we go. Enough about cheese. I'm Rachel Weinhold. Rachel Weinhold, also known as Hannah Weinhold's sister. And yeah, so four original Shooting the Shitters back together. And today we're going to talk about women at the Olympics. So for those of you who are keen shitter listeners, we had an episode not that long ago, actually, was it? Probably only a couple of months ago, where we spoke to Annie Beals, family friend, who is one of the world female arm wrestling champion. We were talking generally about women in sport, but as you might have noticed over the last few weeks, there's a lot of brouhaha going on with the Olympics. So we thought we've got to talk about women at the Olympics. We have to jump on and talk about that because there seems to be so much shit going on at the moment in various forms. So, because we're now like officially doing a podcast and stuff, I thought I'd get some facts and figures for us about women at the Olympics. Are you ready for this shit, girls? Are you ready for this?
Wow, making an effort.
Right. The first Olympic Games to feature female athletes. I know. I proper Googled and then I copy and pasted off Wikipedia. That is research for you. So the first Olympic Games.
Oh, Rachel.
That is absolute perfect timing. I was just waiting for that to happen. Like, oh God, now we can have 5 minutes. Just take a break. It's all good. So yeah, that's her.
Can speak.
So the Olympics. I'm quite interested to hear that fact as well. So sorry, everyone. We temporarily lost Rachel, who has the worst internet connection of anyone I've ever met, including my parents in Leicester.
It's shit for internet, isn't it?
Terrible. So how about
I can pick up on that. I can pick up on that fact because because I also did some research, which was Googling and therefore Wikipediaing as we roll. And actually, it's part of the reason why we're talking about it today, because I actually just went on a rant about it a couple of weeks ago. Because there's a whole bunch of stuff going off in the news but when I say the news, actually that's not true. It tends to be on socials, because I think it's the social social, people pick it up on social media and it's not necessarily covered in the news, and that comes a little bit later. But anyway, to pick up on the point that she was making, the first year that women were allowed to compete in the Olympics was 1900.
What?
So there you are. I know, 1900. That's actually not that long ago, is it? Really, in the grand scheme of like when they started and all of that. So yeah, I finished that for you. That little fact, Rachel. You can carry on now.
Well done, thank you.
I read a really interesting fact as well, that that there was some conversation in 2005 about whether or not women were allowed to participate in ski jumping. There wasn't a women's category in ski jumping in the Olympics until 2014. Because he said so much jumping and landing, and then this is a direct quote, seems not to be appropriate for ladies from a medical point of view. And this was Gianfranco Casper, who was the president of the International Ski Federation. It's not appropriate for ladies from a medical point of view.
Do you know what, though? Wounds drop out of our bodies.
Exactly.
What's going to fall off?
Yeah, women used to be advised not to ride the bus over 50 miles an hour in case their uteruses flew out.
No, but do you know what? This still happens. So I went to a yoga class, not on the bus. You're not.
And your uterus flew out.
And my uterus flew out. No, I went to a yoga class, right? And there was a move that we were doing where you have to have like your legs have to go backwards over your body so that they touch the floor behind you. And she said, "Don't." Yeah, she said, don't do it if you're on your period. And I was like, why aren't I allowed to do it if I'm on my period? And she was like, well, because it might damage your womb. I was like, are you, like, she was a female yoga teacher. I was like, seriously, you think me going backwards over with is going to damage my, what the fuck? Why are we still having this conversation? Crackers. Anyway, back to the Olympics.
Because you'll get a nosebleed because it'll all rush up to you.
Yeah, well, that's what honestly, I had no idea what her answer was going to be as to why I couldn't do it. I was like, is the blood going to get pumped back?
Oh, bloody hell, Rachel. Yes, exactly. Oh, she's back. She's back.
Sorry, this is terrible.
Honestly,
I'm hot spotting as well, and there's no fucker else in the house. This is awful, isn't it? Anyway, right. I need to talk to you about the Olympic facts. I need to talk to you about them. So the Tokyo Olympic Games has been lauded as being the most gender equal Olympic Games ever. But, and I was just finding this out before we came live, in February of this year, the person who was heading up the Tokyo Olympic Committee resigned because he said that they couldn't have any more women on the board of the Olympic Committee for the planning for the Tokyo 2020 Games, because they would have to then extend the time so much because women talk too much. And he was and said, you can't say things like that. That's very naughty. You might want to retract that. And he said, right, fine, I will retract it. And they said, do you really think that women talk too much? And he said, I don't know. I try not to listen to them very much anymore. So he really didn't make things better for himself. So anyway, he did resign. I can't remember his name now. His name was Yoshiro Mori. So Yoshiro resigned, and then they brought in a new Olympic committee, and they did have more women on it. It's still not equal. The Olympic committee keeps saying they're going to try and make it more equal, but so far they haven't. There are a lot fewer women than there are men. About 2/3 men to the number of women. But they are still claiming that this is the most equal Olympic Games ever. And the big flagship fact that they are going with for this Olympic Games is that they let more women carry the flags at the Olympic Games opening ceremony, and therefore they're more equal. But you've been doing some Googling, haven't you, Reach? And you've been finding us some facts that have been jaw-dropping that indicate that perhaps it's not the most gender diverse or gender equal games ever. Tell us your facts.
Yeah, tell us your facts. So I just, started annoying myself basically by Googling, this, that, and the other. And one of the stories I read basically said that in 2012, I mean, that's a way away, isn't it? 2012, the Japan women's national soccer team travelled to the games in economy class, whereas the men travelled in business class. And on the point of the IOC, which is the International Olympics Committee, they have been promising for years and years and years, basically, to have at least 20% of their members being female, which they still haven't achieved. So there's only 20 out of the current 106 members that are there that are female, basically, or represent as female. And, you know, those are, you know, facts, basically, on things that have been happening. But the reason for my initial rant was actually because there seems to be a lot of basically, it's hidden patriarchy, you know, BS, you know, behind COVID rules. So, you know, one of them was that there was a female competitor swimmer who's had to leave her, you know, newborn, still nursing baby at home. She's not allowed to take him with her because of COVID rules, which is absolute bollocks, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? That's just, you know, being dressed up as something else. There is a deaf blind girl that can't take part in her swimming because she's not allowed to take her primary carer with her, which is her mum. But obviously, as a primary carer, it's more about, you know, giving signals to be able to know when to start swimming and to know what to do. It's more than just being able to sign or to give, you know, examples and this, that, and the other. It's not just about care. It's about being able to actually compete. And again, you know, giving COVID rules, to me, it just sounds like absolute bullshit. So that is my rant for today.
It's not good.
Yeah, don't stop there. I mean, it's crackers. And I think the whole thing is just so frustrating because, as we say, this is being lauded as the most gender equal Olympic Games ever. And yet there's still 20%. The goal is to have 20% women to men overall in leadership, in participation, in what have you. And they still haven't achieved it. So whilst they're saying there's more women than there ever have been, that's still a tiny number. I mean, the British team... So the British team, actually, in the British Great British Olympic team, rather, they have sent 201 women to 175 men in terms of the athletes that have gone. So we are one of the best, and you know there are more women than there are men. But when you look at that compared to what other countries are sending, you know, it's a drop in the ocean. There's so few. I mean, Hannah, Joe, neither of you have spoken yet. What do you think?
Wow, we can't get a word in edgeways, Rachel.
I'm so sorry. I apologise.
I think the fact that that they're saying that 20% is the goal is just in itself absolute bullshit. Like, when I talk to people about this, one of the arguments is, oh, well, you know, girls don't want to do sport. There aren't as many women coming through at that level that want to do sport. And I think improving the representation of women in the Olympics comes back to the attitudes that girls get when it comes down to sport in school, in society, from parents, from friends, the peer pressure and so on. And I think that needs sorting out way before they even get to the point where they're thinking about entering the Olympics. And that's just such a tiny part of it. Representation is such a tiny part of it. We haven't even got on to, you know, the sexualization of the uniforms and all the sexual abuse that goes on in training,
which we are going to come on to, so don't jump the gun. I do think it's really important that point about representation. So they used to say it generally about British athletes because, you know, when we were growing up, Britain would never won a gold medal. We never were anywhere, were we? When, you know, the Olympics were happening, we were way down the line. And because we never saw it, we never saw British people doing well. There was no investment in British sport. You know, it just wasn't on our radar. And then the 2012 Olympic Games happened in London. We saw it. It was, you know, it was a really proud moment for the country, wasn't it? After that, the investment in sport was phenomenal. And now look at what Britain is doing when they go to the Olympics. And it genuinely, you know, people say, oh, you have to see something to believe it or to think that you can beat it. And that sounds like a wishy-washy statement, but it is as basic as that, isn't it? If you don't see women from your country competing at the Olympic Games, you are not going to believe that that's the sort of thing women can do. I don't know. Joe, do you watch the Olympic Games? Are you into sport at all?
I'm massively into sport, but I must admit in the recent years I've become more interested, and I have been watching a lot more of the Olympics, watching the highlights. So it's really difficult for me because I know I'm coming with my own biases, and I seem to just tune in every time there is a woman competing. So I feel like I've watched a lot of kick-ass women doing stuff that's like makes my jaw drop. The medals we've got in the BMX. I was watching some of the weightlifting, and this morning when they go really fast on the bikes around the dome, whatever that is, I was watching the women's team on that. So part of me, I mean, I don't know if it's the way they're choosing to cover it or because I'm looking for it. I'm actually seeing a lot of women doing amazing things in the Olympics. So yes, there's a long way to go probably in terms of equality, but from a GB team point of view, I do feel like we have got a good representation. And, if I was a young girl sat tuning into this kind of stuff, or watching it because my dad had got it on or my mum had got it on, it is really inspiring to see like women, or sometimes their children almost, on BMX bikes just doing these crazy things, which I think is incredibly inspiring. And I do think, like you said, the London 2012 Olympics have a lot to do with that, and investment for the GB, but GB sports. So I'm sort of coming at it going, it's looking, I'm looking for it. I'm looking for the women and the representation, and I am somewhat seeing it, but it's all that stuff. And I forget who said it now. I think it might have been Meriesha, that it's not making all the sexist stuff that's happening is beneath.
Sure.
It's not the thing that's making the headline news. It's the insidious stuff underarching it all that is still there. So from front facing, it's looking better.
And I suppose that's always been the case, though, hasn't it? That what's presented to the world has always been, look at this look at the prowess of human beings and the communities coming together and the world coming together. But actually, underneath it, there's always been like racism and sexism and ableism and transgenderism, phobic and homophobia has always bubbled under. Like there's never been a games really that's avoided controversy, and I think like that representation is really good through the media, but it's at an institutional level that the Olympics needs to really examine itself.
However, I do want to add on that, and this is I've noticed as well is good representation. It's on the BBC coverage of having sports commentators. There's good female, women representation there. However, did you see that someone took a pop at I'm terrible with names. Alex for dropping her G's.
Yeah, get to fuck, you fat bastard, whatever his name was.
Lord, someone or other. And it was just like, Steve Fry had the best comeback.
Says it all. Yeah, it says it all, doesn't it? It's almost like there's people within this, they just can't fucking help themselves, can they? They cannot help themselves but to comment on something along those lines, and it's just an accent. It's a thing. Do you know what I mean?
But that's the thing, isn't
how
it?
else can I pull that person down? Let me pick on her dress, or let me pick on her G's. Do you know what I mean? If that's all you've got for me, love, then I'm doing all right.
Well, that's it. They can't criticise her because she's actually really bloody good at her job. She knows what she's talking about. Exactly. So they can't criticise that. So they have to criticise what she's wearing or the way she speaks. That's the only thing they can do. But I do think it's interesting. You've made a really good point there that, once upon a time, the controversy around the games used to be about, doping or cheating or something like that. Nowadays, and I wonder if this might be something to do with the Me Too movement. When you Google, I've been Googling, obviously, for the last few hours, women at the Olympics, women in sport, blah, blah, blah. There seems to be a lot of controversy that's being whipped up by the press. And I do wonder if it is this fact of, the press, they've got to be clickbaity, haven't they? They've got to have headlines to talk about. And they can't now talk about, the women, look, don't you look fat? You've got cellulite, and that outfit doesn't suit her. So instead now they're talking about the sexism and the blah, blah, blah. So there's been loads of stories recently about it. The transphobia one, or the trans issues that they've been talking about, that's been all over my social media profile this morning. So for those of you, this is one of the women that I want to talk about. So for those of you that don't know, so Laurel Hubbard, she is the New Zealand weightlifter. She was born a man. She transitioned in her 30s. She's been allowed to compete at these Olympics. She was weightlifting today. She's actually not she's not placed at all. So Britain got the silver. She cocked up essentially 3 lifts in a row and was disqualified from the round. So in horsey terms, she did not get a clear round and she was sent out of the ring. But there was so many people this morning having a go about this on my Facebook feed, talking about, oh, they shouldn't let her compete and she's not a real woman and there's all this testosterone issue. And that seems to be what the press are focused on in a way because they haven't got anything else. I don't know. Have any of you seen any of this coverage?
Yeah, and it's actually a myth that testosterone leads to enhancements in sport.
Agreed.
Like if you needed the level of testosterone, like your body can't naturally make the level of testosterone that gives you the edge in sport. So this whole argument that the Olympic committees and the powers that be in the Olympics have been making for ever, that men need their own categories, that women who are too manly can't compete, that that it's the testosterone that maketh the athlete. It's absolute bollocks. So next argument.
Well, because have any of you heard about, and I'm going to pronounce these names terribly, but Christine Mboma and Beatrice Masalingi, they are, I can't remember, they're from Africa. Nambia, they're from Nambia. And, excuse me, they were disqualified because they're cis women, they were born women, they've always identified as women. Their natural testosterone levels were too high to compete. Yeah, and they've been banned from the Olympics. Now, they did say, the Olympic Committee said, if you take hormones to reduce your testosterone, we will let you compete. And they've both said, no, we haven't artificially elevated our testosterone. So now you want us to drug ourselves to reduce it. And actually, we just want to compete the way we are. And they didn't have any competitive edge. So this seems to me like real double standards.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder, what Usain Bolt's testosterone level is, if people are really measuring the men as well to see if they've got
exactly
an advantage.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's not even up for discussion when we're talking about men, but when it comes to female and what's happening within that category, all of a sudden hormones play a massive role in that. And actually, I do have high testosterone. It's there. Do you know what I mean? So I'm aware of that because of the other things that come with. And actually, then there's the question of unfortunately, is it that it's a race thing that seems to come along with that conversation about elevated testosterone as well? So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's tied up in this, and it's absolute BS. It's almost like you said, like, well, we haven't got anything to talk about anymore because drug testing is quite good, so we weed people out that way. What else have we got, to kind of make sure we can bring people down to the level that we're happy or we find is acceptable, for people to be able to participate.
Wasn't there also, just thinking, you said about testosterone and maybe, it seems to be penalising women of colour. There was also the issue with swimming caps that were allowed, there was certain to allow for different types of hair that might not squeeze nicely, and they were not allowed to be used, right? Is that correct?
Agreed. Yeah. So there are not even necessarily religious reasons. It could be that you've just got big hair. Like, how do you put all that hair into a skull cap, like literally skull cap? And so there's a UK brand that have made swim hats that allow for that, like this. Basically, they've just got a bit of a bit baggier on top. And they were said, no, we can't do it. It doesn't follow the form of the head, so therefore they're not allowed, and they're not within.
My brain cannot compute that. I know. My brain cannot compute how. Like, it's still on your head.
Yeah,
your hair is still on your
human head. Yeah.
Yes. It's like saying your head's the wrong shape.
Where
are going to draw the line?
It's crackers. But you're absolutely right. It is. It's very subtly tied in with race, because this trope of the black woman being more manly, that's as old as time, isn't it? And that whole thing, these women, obviously from Nambia, they are black, and they're look at just Google them, people. Just Google them. They're quite clearly women. They're really feminine. They're quite petite in terms of their frame. And yet the whole narrative around them is, they've got too much testosterone. They're far too manly to compete. It's got you cannot measure gender purely by the amount of hormones that someone has got, because people have got, polycystic ovary syndrome, which completely changes the hormones. That doesn't make them any less of a woman. It's fucking batshit. I'm conscious of the time. I'd like us to talk about Simone Biles. So Simone Biles, also a black woman, surprisingly enough. She pulled out. She didn't pull out of the entire Olympics. She is going to compete in the next couple of days, apparently, on the beam. But she pulled out of some of her groundwork, because for the sake of her mental health, she said, basically, she was getting lost in the air, which is apparently a gymnast term. It means when you start turning, when you're doing flips, your brain and your body don't work together. And there's a chance that you will land that poorly. And if you land that poorly, you break a leg or you break your neck or worst case scenario, you're dead. But either way, they are career-ending injuries. She has faced so much fucking flack. And do you know who's been the biggest vocalist against her? Fucking Piers Morgan. Middle-aged white man has been absolutely tirading her on Twitter, saying, champs don't step down and blah, blah, blah. I mean, again,
just a vile shit. Can we just move on from Piers Morgan? He just doesn't deserve the airtime. He just fucking hates anyone that's not a gammon.
But do you know what really wound me up, though, about Piers Morgan is, so she has said she didn't pull out. She never pulled out of the entire Olympics. She just pulled out of those specific events. And she's now said that she will compete in the beam. He has said that he's really glad that she's listened to her and taken his advice and gone back into the competition.
He's such a twat.
How has this guy not been absolutely ousted? Honest God.
I don't know.
Simone Biles is a fucking hero.
Yeah, she absolutely is. But I mean, again, it's that rhetoric, isn't it? This is a woman. She is a woman. She's a fucking grown up. And she has said, actually, I'm not going to do that for the sake of my mental health, of my physical health. I'm not going to do that. And you can't make me. And so many female athletes have come out in support and said, female figure skaters from the 80s and other gymnasts and stuff have said, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd had the strength to say that, because actually I didn't. And this is my career ending injury. And that, you can watch videos on Twitter. But again, everybody has piled in and said, oh, what a weak woman. What a poor, pathetic woman that she can't, finish the obviously women should not be able to compete in this. And again, it's just fucking crackers, isn't it? How do we stop this? How do we stop this?
And also, it's like, since when? Like, talk about mansplaining. I'm sorry. Yes. Are you an Olympic gymnast?
Yeah.
So understand what happens when you're midair and how you would just describe that, Rachel. I forget the term you use now.
I think it's called twisties or something, isn't it?
They call it twisties, But they've said they get lost in the air. That's the term they've used.
Get lost in the air. So I'm sorry, Piers Morgan. Unless you're an actual Olympic athlete gymnast who can commentate properly, you've got nothing to say. You've got nothing to say. She made a professional decision because she's a professional sports person. And that's the end. Like, that's all there is to say. How can anyone wade in unless you're that professional? Yeah. That's not your profession.
Yeah.
I'm loving this rant. I am really
Can I just...
Go on, Hannah.
No, go on, Mish.
No, I was just going to say, it's isn't it amazing how it's so, like, we're all so passionate about this, because it's there, isn't it? Just under the surface. Actually, it's fucking dirty, do you know?
Yeah,
that this is kind of almost literal ownership of these people because they're performing for the country. I can't remember the other guy.
Performed in the way they want them to perform.
I can't remember the American guy that was in that same kind of rant space as Piers Morgan. I'm not going to look it up. I'm not going to give that arsehole the airtime. But he was absolutely fucking vile about what he said, and he was like, we own you. That's not your gold medal. It's ours. And because you haven't competed and you haven't won, the Russians have won it, and I'm not happy about that. And I'm like, is this a joke? Like, seriously, is this for real? That people are and actively saying it, like, out, you know,
yes,
in the
that's
media.
the thing.
It's amazing.
And that I don't know whether this is because of social media. You know, once upon a time, these middle-aged fat men who were sat in their armchairs would have just said it to the family who was around, but now they've got social media so they can say it.
Yes.
I don't know whether that's the issue, or it is because we've had Me Too and they cannot criticize the women for the other thing. So we've got this whole. But literally everything I seem to have read about, you know, there are. Although we criticised at the beginning, you know, when they said this is, you know, there are more women at this Olympic Games than there ever have been, and we went, yeah, well, it's still not very many. There are more women at this Olympic Games than there ever have been, and the only stories we are hearing is the women have pulled out and the women are falling out and the women aren't wearing the right leotards. This is another one. We haven't even got onto the German gymnast team. Like, can we not just fucking celebrate these women that have got to this position without criticizing?
Athletes, you know, the amount of things that, you know, the dedication and the passion for an athlete to get to that point, you know, and let's not, you know, I agree with Joe, you know, I think there's, and kind of to what Hannah said as well, there's this almost like united front with what's shown on the TV and what's shown in the news and things like that. But can you imagine like what they've had to go through to get there? I'm not saying that the men don't, you know, however, there's this other vile layer, you know, that the women have to go through to compete at this. You know,
I think I know we're going to run out of time, but
let's keep this going. I'm ready for this one.
I just want to, you know, let's talk about outfits, right? And, you know, the Norwegian beach volley handball team made it big in the news. It wasn't at the Olympics. It was a European match, and that they didn't wear bikini bottoms. They wore the shorts, and then they were fined for it, right? So I remember not so long ago, you know, flicking through the channels and beach volleyball was on, a women's team. And I literally couldn't believe, I was like, is this some kind of joke? Is this kind of some kind of soft porn? And that was not in reaction to how the women were behaving. They were playing it, but it was, everything about the vibe was sexualized, so much so I didn't recognize it as a sport. I thought if there'd been a load of men stood around with those big red cups going then I would have just thought it was like a scene from some cheesy American pervy film. So, and that's not so long ago. And can I also say it's also in my lifetime that I remember it's not Olympics, sorry, I'm veering off, but it was Wimbledon. You know, when they do like some montages at the end of Wimbledon and it's all like fun and there's shots. I remember them doing a video montage of showing women's asses.
Yes.
The players. Do you remember that?
When the women, because the women used to, well, I think they still do, don't they? Keep the tennis ball in the pockets. And as they went to get a tennis ball out or put a tennis ball in, they lifted their skirt up. And
basically,
Wimbledon always used to do. Yeah, exactly. Upskirting.
A video montage
at the end
of the arses.
Yeah. All the women lifted their skirt.
I grew up with that. And then it had some cheeky music over it. Like it was just like, let's look at all the sexy lady arses. So not let's are they great sports people?
Yeah.
It might as well have been.
They are
I was thinking more the cheeky girls. Touch
I am the cheeky girl.
But you know what I mean? Like, this is in my lifetime. So I grew up with that, thinking, oh, look, Wimbledon, aren't the girls sexy in their little outfits?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're
right.
Sexualized.
Beach volleyball, absolutely. Beach volleyball has been like shorthand for your friends' dads, hasn't it? Like, oh, your friends' dads, they're watching the beach volleyball, perverts. Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's shorthand for, you know, sexy time. Bongo time.
It is, but even like, you know, we are going on a bit of more of a general rant, I guess, really here. But it's not so long ago that, you know, that actually black ballerinas were penalised for not wearing pink tights because it was that they were flesh coloured. You know, and that was an issue. So therefore they lost points because they weren't in these like flesh coloured tights.
Even though they're not flesh coloured.
Right, exactly. And the reason why I say that is that there's almost this like just elitist behaviour that is, you know, there's that with the patriarchy, with a, you know, a little, you know, sprinkling of sexism and racism that all goes like combined in sport in general. And it seems like such a horrible place to be honest. And I'm not sure. I mean, I think that the the conversations and the narrative, they're getting better, you know, in terms of, you know, I think that there is a generational, I can't say it, somebody say it, but there's a change. Yeah, at the minute, you know, and I think that Gen Z, you know, for example, are a lot more accepting and open of having these conversations. I'm not saying it's right, but they'll call it out, you know, and that allows, you know, other people to get involved in the conversation, really. But man, you know, I think somebody said earlier that it's, you know, it starts at school almost, you know, in terms of being able to take part in sports and this, that, and the other. And I read something earlier as well that was it was a dissertation actually on the patriarchy and sport, and you know, it is that actually at very, you know, a very early age, all of the people in power are men. So that it starts from then, like before they even get to those kind of levels or that kind of age where we're talking about competing, you know, in the world. It starts, you know, in school, you know, because it's low level sexism that starts to creep in from there straight away, you know.
Well, it absolutely does, and it's absolutely. Go on, Hannah. Go on.
Yeah, 100%. There's still, you know, boys do football, girls do netball, and don't get too butch, girls. Don't lift weights too much because you don't want your arms turning up too much. And, you know, it is 100% just from those higher levels. There's societal pressures on girls to not be as into sport, or, you know, it's not feminine to be into sport or to be ripped or whatever.
But even now, you know, those girls that do, I've got a friend whose daughter is, you know, she loves football. She's wants to be a professional football player, and she's having like tryouts for the national team and stuff. And even now, she's still getting comments like, "Oh, what a tomboy!" You see, she posts something on her Facebook about, you know, "Oh, my daughter's done this and she's just won this trophy," and everyone's like, "Oh, isn't she a tomboy? Look at her!" And you're like, "Oh my God, no, she's a girl. She loves playing football." And it's still that narrative that we are passing down, you know, that sport is good for boys, but it's not good for girls. And then if they get there, they don't just have the fact that they've got to give up, you know, 6 hours of every single day in order to train. They've got to battle all of this fucking shit of, well, you're not wearing the right clothing, and you're not standing in the right position, and you can't take your baby, and you can't take your mum, and you know, it's just batshit, isn't it? Anyway, we are out of time, I'm afraid, girls. So there we go. That's got our that's given us something to rant about on a Monday afternoon, hasn't it?
And I think we've all done some good research and read some good articles. So we'll put the links to the articles in the show notes on the podcast.
Yes, absolutely. Reesh, final words?
I haven't got any. I'm just living.
All right.
I'm happy I've had this rant. It's been a while since I've been on, so I've put my feelings across. I've ranted my way through this one, so it'll be another couple of months before I see you again. Thanks.
Good. Marvellous. Well, your contribution is always appreciated. Hannah, final words.
Sorry, what an inopportune time to cough.
Yes. There we go. That it? That's literally your final word.
I was waiting for Hannah to speak.
I know. Well, just to say then, so I did do a bit of reading whilst one of you was ranting, and just about the upper and lower levels of testosterone in runners. There is no upper level of testosterone, and in men, and interestingly, there's no lower level, at which point they are banned or they have to go with the women. Yeah. Wow. So there's only an upper level for women, and they were asked to the IAFF, which you know, sorts out the regulations and that. Yeah. They were asked to prove that it made a difference. The level of testosterone gave them a 10 to 12% advantage, a higher level of testosterone, and they couldn't prove it, so they had to withdraw that 10 to 12% statement.
Wow.
So there we go.
So that's absolutely amazing, unequivocally double standards, isn't it? There's no 100%. Two ways about that. That's yeah,
I'd love that. Yeah. I'd love that there's, you know, that there should be a lower level. Sorry, guys, testosterone's not too high. You know, compete with the women.
Yeah, you're too feminine.
The women would wipe the floor with them. Honestly, that'd be amazing. Love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Joe, yeah, but nobody ever says, "Oh, you know what? You're too effeminate, mate." Like, you know.
Well, exactly. That conversation.
You should be competing in the men's.
Yeah.
You should be competing in the ladies.
No,
that doesn't happen.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
I know. I did have a final word other than my.
Yeah, and you put your hand up like a very good girl.
No,
Go on.
Because I was like, I've got to get it out before I forget. And it was. I know. I have ranted today, and it's been, kind of women and female heavy. But what we can't ignore the fact that it's also an issue, that it's essentially alpha male, and actually for the men that don't, conform to that and don't equal that, they are equally, shooed or shunned, or, you can't play football, you big wuss, and this, that and the other. And even that starts at a very early age. So I do think we have to, it's not just us, we have an extra level of stuff going on with that, but it's patriarchy, isn't it? It affects the men as well. So.
It's a really good point. I was reading an article by a gay man who started a gay men's football team for that very reason. He'd wanted to play. He loved football. He wanted to play football as a child. He'd essentially been chased out of every football club he'd gone to because he said he was too gay. And so he started a gay football team. And you're like, come on, man, we're fucking 2020 or 2021. We're 2021.
Yeah.
This is fucking bullshit. Joe, final words.
Final words, I think, just on that note, for those, whether you're raising children, have nephews and nieces or whatever, you're in education, I think when it comes to sport, if your kid wants to run about and kick a ball or bounce on a trampoline or do whatever, just encourage it and don't gender it, for heaven's sake, I think is my final message on that,
Yeah.
Wear what you want while you're doing it.
Yes. Yeah, wear a big leotard, you'll be all right. Brilliant. Thank you very much, all of you. If you are watching the Facebook Live, please leave us a comment. Even if you're watching back afterwards, we still keep an eye on the comments, so you may talk to us if you so wish. If you're watching on YouTube, head over to the Facebook page and become part of the conversation. If you are listening to our podcast, like and subscribe, guys. Leave us a review. It really helps. All that bollocks. Also, join us on the Facebook page, because there you can join in the conversation. That is it. We are saying goodbye. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Bye.